Finish.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, nice. Well, so good afternoon and thank you. Many thanks to the organizers, Katia and Amelia, of these webinars, to the opportunity to present my work here today. I am delighted to share this time with you to discuss the topic of my postdoctoral project, which I am developing at the University of Santiago de Compostela in Spain, within the research group in literary theory and comparative literature. And in my current project, gender studies and digital humanities play a significant role, and this is why I'm here today. I will begin by explaining the title of my project and its context. It's called Medieval Socioliterary Networks Towards a Comparative Reconstruction of Women's Cultural and Political Agency in 12th and 13th century Europe. And this project aims to study the cultural and political agency of medieval women through the collection and analysis of various Latin epistolary texts produced in Europe. In my research, I combine close reading of the text with distant reading of the network of people and places in which these texts are embedded to understand cultural processes more broadly and interconnectedly. Thus, okay, I think you can see the slide, right? Yeah, okay. So thus, this project combines basic qualitative research, I mean attentive and thorough reading, with quantitative and computer-based analysis, which will allow us to visualize and explore male and female networks of correspondence. This interdisciplinary approach, indirect to Franco Moretti's concept of distant reading, is promising in obtaining a panoramic view of social, cultural, and political interactions in the medieval period. This, in turn, allows us to unravel new questions and conclusions, otherwise invisible or obscure, about, first of all, the relationships between people, territories, and centers of culture and power in medieval Europe. Second, the ways in which these relations were influenced by the emotional, intellectual, creative, polemical, and exegetical context of the time. And three, the role of women as significant and multifaceted subjects in the historical construction of past societies. For this, I am interested in collecting letters written by medieval women addressed to them or in which they are mentioned as a starting point to explore networks of literary sociability that also function as networks of influence, culture, and power. Okay, so to a large extent, this work aims to continue exploring some of the theoretical and critical lines I opened during my doctoral thesis entitled, and this, well, it was written in Spanish, but the translation into English could be something like Corresponding with Women, Literary Tradition, Gender, and Emotion in the Loire Circle, France, 11th, 12th centuries, which I defended in December 2019 at the University of Santiago de Compostela. During my doctorate, I researched and translated for the first time into Spanish the Latin epistolary exchange between the poets and churchmen. I think Amelie is connected, and churchmen of the so-called Loire School, Baudry of Bourgogne, Marbot of Rennes, and Hildebert of Labardin, and a series of conventual women and lay noble women from France and England, that is the so-called Anglo-Norman court, whom I identify as a relevant textual and emotional community, to use the words of Barbara Rosenwein, for the period I studied. These men and women formed a socioliterary network of individuals connected through complex relationships, which required consideration of social, literary, creative, political, and religious issues to analyze. My interest in understanding this epistolary correspondence as a part of a larger, broader, and more integrative network of influence and relationships led me to work on my current project that I am presenting here today. Actually, the key in today's presentation, I think it is the word network. We refer to networks as connected data, which can be of any type, people, letters, and territories, as in my case, but also images, manuscripts, novel characters, linguistic variations, scientific authorships, economic sectors of one or several countries, etc., etc. So to study networks, we use the methodology of social network analysis, which is specific for this task and supported by numerous digital tools. The images of networks like the ones you see on the screen obtained with software like Gephi, Citoscape, or Bison, I think they are very well known today. Since many research projects today from all disciplines use this type of approach to work with connected data, but I focus specifically on the field of humanities and more concretely on philology, I would like to mention this project from the UNED in Spain. It's called Vieses, which applies the social network analysis methodology to the study of pre-19th century Spanish female authors using Gephi and Bison. Maybe you probably know about it, but just in case, I think it's a very important project in my country. So talking right now, yes, finally about my project. It's worthy to mention, it's needed to mention that I use NodeGoat, a web environment for the humanities developed by Pim van Vre and Gert Kessels in the Netherlands, which allows for the creation of relational databases and enriches the connections of the elements recorded in them. This makes it possible to create complex networks capturing many nuances that would go unnoticed in a standard database made, for example, in Excel. Conversely, NodeGoat allows us to build fully customized conceptual and logical models tailored to our research needs. For example, to study epistolary relationships like those we are discussing today, or we are going to discuss today, the basic conceptual model would be the following. So each letter we want to study is linked to people, sender and recipient at least, and cities, origin and destination at least. This conceptual model will translate into the logical model you see on the screen, which is very more enriched with different items, right? Date, kind of letter, etc. We can customize this part as we want and we need. So this ultimately allow us to create network visualizations like this one from my own project, for example. So since I'm going to talk about NodeGoat yet, now, I think the best thing I can do is to present my project from the website. So in a relational, okay, sorry, I wanted to also to add before continuing that NodeGoat is very useful. It's a very useful tool, not only because it allows us to create, explore, and visualize databases, but because we can also upload text, annotate, and tag them, which is particularly interesting for a philologist, of course. So in a relational database like the one you can create with NodeGoat, each element is connected to other of the same database, allowing us to obtain a series of cross-reference on which we can then conduct various analyses. All of this, which seems very, very abstract right now, I think it will become clearer through the examples we will examine together. So I would like to show you what my database looks like inside and explain its functionality very, very briefly. In the object section, let me, well, I think you see it. It's because, okay, now, here, object section, you can enter different elements according to their type. It could be people, letters, painting, countries, or songs, for example. But as you can see, I have created the object people, letters, mention places, religious centers, and areas. In addition to city, which is an object which is already included in the program by default. Thanks to the customization that NodeGoat enables, I have been able to geolocate very specific points, like, for example, Larrey, or broad geographic areas like Brittany or the Holy Land. Later, you will understand why I had to do this and what it is useful for. Additionally, besides the objects, NodeGoat also facilitates the creation of categories, which are qualities here, which are qualities shared by several objects. I have added the following: emotions, discursive mode, typology, context, and purpose, which refer to the object letters, and religious order, which is linked to religious centers, gender, which is a category I have linked to both religious centers and people, and finally, the category status, which refers only to people. Then we have here queens, nuns, whatever we need. I will show you, for example, the category discursive mode. So if as I already said it, it's linked to the object letter. So if I press here, for example, in the prose section, I will see all the letters I have identified as prose letters, okay? And everything is connected. If I press, everything that goes in blue is because it's connected to another thing in the database. So it's a very beautiful network of things. So in typology, let me try to hide my camera here, then I can go out, okay. In typology, I have added for now the following possibilities: administrative letter, dedication letter, personal letter. In relation to the context, we have these options: religious, creative, intellectual, private, economical, social, and political. Additionally, and departing from my study of the text I have been collecting in the database, I have considered the following purposes as the ones that motivated epistolary communication. Then we have literary relationship, gratitude, protection, mediation, reaction, personal lament, advice, support, donation, information, request, or encomiastic. Okay, so it's still very abstract. I'm going to show you some specific examples. Let's move on to the letters object and select the letter that Hildebert of Lavardin sent to Matilda of Scotland. So the information presented for each letter varies. I work with a certain number of items, and depending on the available data, more or fewer sections will be covered for each record. In this case, we have basic information about the sender, the recipient, date, the original text in Latin, the Spanish translation, the discursive mode, typology, context, purpose, emotions, testimonies, and a link to the digital text that in this case is located in the epistolary repository in Columbia University, which is very, very useful for me in my research. So So from this brief example, I can show you how cross-referencing works. You can see that in the Latin text, there are tagged words. In this example, they are terms referring to different emotions from either the term itself or from cross-referencing, I can see in which other letters I have tagged the same emotion. So let's go now to the general cross-referencing section and press personal love. Then a window will open with all the letters within the database that are connected to the same emotion. This is still a work in progress, so not all the letters are already tagged, but this is an example of how it works. From there, we could, of course, explore the other letters. For example, we can enter into the Matilda's one, Matilda of Tuscany, sent to Alberto of Brie and Ida, his wife. Okay. So in the cross references tag section related to personal love. So here we were in the letter section, cross-referencing, I mean in the cross-reference section. So we can see the letters connected to that emotion, but we can also see how I tag that emotion in the other text, which I consider is connected to specifically the emotion of personal love, which verbs or which sentences. Okay, so let's return to the general information of the letter, of Hildebert's letter to Matilda, to check how the relationships with people object in our database are structured. If we click on Matilda of Scotland, a record dedicated to her will be displayed, where we can see the following information. In other cases, the same as I mentioned earlier for the letters, the cover sections may be different. So we have other names because she was also named as Edith of Scotland. We have a very short biography. We have the BIAF ID. That is a unique and universal identifier assigned by international libraries to avoid confusion with other possible women with the same name, which is very useful, especially if this is your work is going to be reused by other people, for example, and they have doubts. And okay, I want to move this table here better. I can see the screen better. Okay, so I was saying we have the BIAF ID, we have the gender, the status, the parents, the descendants, the partners. Furthermore, and this is the important thing for me, at the bottom of the screen, you can see different milestones of her life, which, as expected, also take the form of linked data. So if we click on them, a new record will be displayed, and where we can see the cross-references to other people, documents, or places in the database. In the case of Matilda of Scotland, I have recorded the date and place of birth, death, and burial, as well as the religious centers where we know she received education during her life in Romsey and in Wilton. It is worth noting that this biographical information is much more complete for other women in the database, such as Ermengarde of Anjou, whose travels I have also documented. So let's take a look at this. I can search her name here. And then, as you can see, we have a lot of information in this section. And this is very important because this allows us to create subsequent visualizations as well. So And of course, a more in-depth work with historical sources will allow us to complete this with many, many more details. But I think it's quite detailed right now. I wanted to show you the first event we have, the birth of Ermengarde. It is believed that Ermengarde was born around 1070, but since there is no exact date, I have indicated the temporal uncertainty in the following way, using what Notgood calls between statements to mark that the Countess could have been born in 1067 or 68 or 69 or 70. This is just an approximation, and each researcher can choose to make their own. It's just an interesting and recommended option if you want to emphasize that a date is not entirely certain. The next event we have in the database is the place of residence. Ermengarde, who was born in Angers, moved to Brittany around 1090 when she married Alan IV, Duke of Brittany. The various life events I have entered here can be visualized on a map with a chronological bias. Hence, it's very important to have a clear criterion when handling uncertain or vague dates. So I would like to show you, I think I have time to show you the map that Notgood can create with all of this information. So you will see a map on the screen. Well, right now you don't see it because I paused it. Okay. And at the bottom of this dynamic visualization, there is a bar, if you can see it, with the dates when each event took place. While you watch the visualization progress, I will narrate the different events reflected in it. So, as I mentioned, Ermengarde was born around 1070 in Angers in the county of Anjou. She was the daughter of Count Folc IV and Ermengarde of Beaugency. The period in Angers, a center of cultural flourishing and religious renewal, was stimulating for the future countess, bringing her into contact with important church figures who became key figures in her life, such as Marbot of Rennes or Robert of Arbrizel. Around 1090, Ermengarde married Alan IV, Count of Rennes and Duke of Brittany. Secondary sources I have reviewed suggest that the couple's favorite residence was in Rennes, but to avoid inaccuracies with chronology and geography, since I do not know exactly during which periods they stayed at each of their residences, I have chosen to mark the entire period in Brittany with the place I have registered ad hoc in the database as French Brittany, which appears as a polygon on the map. And if you remember, we talked a little bit earlier about the areas of category object, sorry. Ermengarde always maintained a strong connection with Anjou and received support from both her father and her half-brother Folc V, who succeeded the county and later became king after his marriage to Melisande of Jerusalem. So in June 1096, before Alan IV left for the Holy Land with the First Crusade, we know that Ermengarde and he traveled together to Angers in an attempt to reinforce the image of public support that Folc IV provided his daughter, now that she would be regent of the county in her husband's absence, a role that actually she held for 5 years. This is the journey I marked on our maps. The same year of Alan's departure, Ermengarde helped Marbot of Angers secure the bishopric of Rennes, a smart political move that ensured she maintained ties with her birthplace, as well as having a reformist ally nearby. From that period, we have an encomiastic letter poem that Marbot dedicated to the Countess, which has been also collected in my Notgood database. Ermengarde was a strong advocate of religious reform, exploring her spirituality to the point of entering, while still married, the Abbey of Fontevraud, founded by Robert of Arbrizel. as it can be seen in our visualization, Ermengarde stayed there between 1105 and 1108, when she was ordered to leave the abbey after failing to have her marriage annulled. So here. From that period, we have correspondence with Robert of Arbrisel himself, who encouraged her to fulfill her destiny alongside her husband, and with Abbot Geoffrey of Vendôme, who criticized her harshly for this. Ermengarde returned to the court, but her husband Alan retired to the Abbey of Redon as a monk in 1112, apparently persuaded by Ermengarde herself, where he remained until his death 7 years later. During that period, Ermengarde acted as a regent of Brittany along with her son Conan III. The next point I have marked is her journey to Anjou to bid farewell to her brother Fulk V, who was betrothed to Melisande before his departure to Jerusalem. Okay, so she was also living in La Haye, in the Cistercian convent, before returning to the world. She visited her brother in Jerusalem, and during her stay in the Holy Land, Ermengarde continued her commitment to Christianity, founding the Church of the Holy Savior in Nablus, where some historians believe she even resided, but we don't know. And then she returned to Brittany, where she lived for another 12 years before finally passing away in 1147. What is interesting for me here is, as we have just explained, and she maintained a close relationship with the church, with the power, something that is demonstrated by both the preserved epistolary literature and her connections with various religious centers and her charitable actions. So it's a connection between literature, women, and cultural and powerful places of that time. So this is a specific, very specific and important, very important also connection that we can see in other religious centers. So it's something that we can explore also using this functionality of NodeGoat. We can create this map, and then we can see all the data related to the different religious objects. So, for example, the center we mentioned earlier as the residence of Ermengarde, the Abbey of Fontevraud, is a very specific, special place of memory where the female presence is very strong. And this would be my last example, but because we have some letters here as well. So first, as a monastery for both women and men from the year 1101, and later as a mixed abbey from 1115, Fontevraud was founded by Robert of Arbrisel, thanks to the patronage of another woman of the secular nobility, Adelaida of Rivière. I'm going to show you, actually, the donation letter, in which, let me check here. So it's in Foundation Adelaida. If we press here, we see cross-reference, we see the letter. So I wanted to show it to you because in this letter, Adelaide acknowledged having received the consent of her mother, Arenburga, whose name I will, of course, I of course also tagged to record the role of this other woman in the donation. I think it's very important, and sometimes we miss this kind of information because we don't put enough attention on these details of which women were around other, making, of course, playing some roles. So in addition to establishing his own order, Robert of Arbrisel decreed that the abbey the Abbey of Fontevraud, should always be led by a woman, to whose commands the male community also had to submit. Thus, in 1115, he entrusted the direction of Fontevraud to Petronilla of Chemillé, despite her previous marriage, reaffirming the practice followed in other centers, such as, for example, Ronceret, of opening convents to the outside world. In the biography that Andreas Capellanus wrote about Robert of Arbrissel, it is mentioned that he combines everyone that Petronilla, a lay convert, should be the abbess by arguing that she would be better able to handle external affairs than a cloister virgin. Therefore, it's very interesting to read how a 19th century church history describes Petronilla and legitimizes her leadership in the following terms. I'm reading right now. The first abbess of Fontevraud was Petronilla of Craon-Chemillé, chosen less for her illustrious birth than for her intelligence and experience in affairs, because it was believed that a woman accustomed to observing men in the world and taking advantage of opportunities would be more apt for such a diversified and extensive governance than a maiden secluded from her youth, and solely exercised in singing psalms or meditating on the truths of the gospel. And it continues. So I really like this example because Petronille, who was the first abbess of Fontevraud, she herself commissioned Baudry Bourgoil to write a vita about Robert of Arbrissel. So we have here, I enter it in my database, the dedication letter that the abbess received from Baudry, the Archbishop of Dole. So she played, definitely she played a role as a person, as a woman who wants to contribute to the culture of her time. And I think this is a general idea, but I find it enough for you to understand how this kind of connected data can work and how they can allow us to understand better the network of female and male people from the Middle Ages. So thank you for your time, and I'm open. I'm here for questions or whatever comment you wanna or suggestion you wanna make. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura. This was not just very interesting, but also very useful. And I see that Amelia posed quite some questions in the chat. Perhaps you would like to look at them and then answer, or Amelia, would you like to ask the questions by yourself?
Maybe she can't talk.
Yeah, this is probably why, but I can still ask her.
Okay. Okay, I can try to answer them. So Amelia asked if the author, the places, the works in my database have permanent links. Some of them, yes, I found them here in BIAF. And I was also using GeoNames, exactly. And actually, I also contributed to GeoNames database because I have to create some specific points that were not yet recorded or registered. So it's a very useful way of collaborating in science altogether. And this is a very important question. If it is possible to open this database for the benefit of the open science, I wish I can do it. But the truth is that right now it's a very private database. I'm using the free mode that NodeGoat has. But of course, the developers also sell this product. And the thing is that, for example, in my research group, the problem is not paying for the software, which is something that they can afford, is more the situation we have in the university. I don't know if you experience the same in your own centers, but the thing is that we cannot use the server of the university to have this website, to host this website. So I am not sure how can handle this by my own. It's also true that there are other projects in my university, for example, they pay for a specific server and they create a website, and after 10 years or so, the website expires and then everything is lost. So I have that problem right now. I don't know what to do with the database. I really would like to open it and to share with more people. And in my mind, I think it makes sense even to make this a very collaborative work, like having other researchers entering here, more letters, more places, recording new women and etc., because it's a very difficult work to handle by myself. And this is why some of the records are very complete, others are less complete, and I really will need a team for that. So yeah. Yeah, I guess this is a problem. I don't know outside of Spain if it is exactly the same, but I think it's a real problem we have with open science here in our country. So I'm not sure if there is something broader or something higher, I mean, in terms of European infrastructure that can allow me to share this to have it in a stable place and not missing the information with the passing years. But I still have to check all the options. And I learned to use NodeGoat, Amelia, by myself. I would say it's quite it's difficult sometimes, but the general structure is easy to understand how it works. And they have these online guides. I mean, the developers, they have online guides that are very clear. And every time I have a doubt, I wrote them, I emailed them. They were very nice and they always answered to me. I also I was also in a virtual seminar, open and free seminar they gave once. In that case, they were talking about linking, as you were asking, so I can connect the question. They were talking about how to use NodeGoat to create databases of data that are stored, as you said, repertories, digital libraries, how to import all the data here, because something that you can do in NodeGoat is import very huge amount of data, or not very huge, but you have a CVS document, for example, and you want to import the information in the website, you can do it. And also you can export the data in a CVS file. So this is something cool that I have here. So, and I think I answered more or less all the questions. Yeah, what I have in my mind when I created and I started exploring this possibility of using NodeGoat, I mentioned it before, the Epistolae repository of Columbia University. Epistolae, I think it's called Women Writers Letters or Medieval Women's Letters. I don't remember how is the subtitle, but the thing is that repository was super useful for me during my PhD thesis, and something that I was missing there, because you can see the text and the sender, the recipient, but that's all, right? Well, it's a lot, but I mean, you have the text and you have some bios, biographical information, but you cannot connect more than that. And then I found this option with NoteGood, and I thought, okay, this is everything, because now you can really have the whole picture of how literature traveled and how the women were sending or receiving letters, but also they were traveling around, they were making donations, founding new centers of power, of religious power, and they were in every sphere that we study from when we studied the past societies, right? So yeah, and then the nice future of having this the option of making these visualizations and everything, I think it's a very special tool and very, very useful. Bye bye. Bye, Amelia.
Bye bye, Amelia. Okay, just one question. I think you did, or you haven't replied to one Amelia's question, but my question is similar. How did you decide about these categories like emotions? I really liked emotions, how you tagged the emotions. Did you use any literature about emotions, or these are just your terms, your ideas? What is interesting regarding emotions?
That's a very good question. It's something that I explored a lot during my PhD. I was not using per se digital tools. I tried some things, but they didn't work very well for what I wanted to do. And I was very obsessed with emotions as well during my PhD. So it's something that I already reflected about on it in that time. And then I continue with those categories. I was reflecting on them some years ago. What I found, the emotion that I think it's not only I think it, there is a lot of bibliography about it, is that during the Middle Ages, specifically in the 12th century, love was a very important emotion. And then love has a lot of nuances and like different emotions that can derive from this big love concept. So I work a lot on that I use a lot the works of Barbara Rosenwein, and yeah, I think it comes from that period of my studies, and then I am quite used right now to, when I see something, a formula or something that reminds me to that, I can go and tag, okay, this is personal love, or this is, this is more desire, because I also had during my thesis, I also found some erotic letters, and I was discussing that in some articles. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, these are my questions. Gordana, perhaps you have a question for...
No, actually, I wanted to just thank to Laura for very interesting and I would say even inspiring. I'm a bit working in digital humanities, not my main area of research, but I was also doing some emotional analysis context. I actually am currently writing a book about contemporary novels that are dealing with the topic of leprosy. So, and I was analyzing for some conferences. I'm actually now preparing for one conference in autumn, that analysis of sentiments in those kind of novels, which are, of course, as you might expect, have a lot of variety in that emotional sense. So yeah, it's quite interesting to me, especially that area of sentiment analysis.
And are you trying to use any digital tools for that? Because I made some experiments.
Yeah, I do, but this is something that was developed at University of Joens a long time ago by one research group, but later on it was developed by a private company, actually. So they allow me to experiment a bit. So it's not publicly open, but I actually use it, and I find it quite interesting actually, and it's very manageable, doable, like for this kind of text. And yeah, I'm still kind of like bit experimenting with it, because it crossed my mind, because I was analyzing these novels and I thought, this would be very good to have some kind of tools that can process the emotions, because
Exactly.
they are very present exactly in that type of literature. So, and since you are now talking now about middle age, that was to me very interesting, because I was also working a bit when I was doing my PhD studies with medieval literature. I was also studying certain type of text, but they were doing something with pilgrimages, and so it's not so much orientated like that. But yeah, this medieval women context is quite interesting to me too. And
Yeah.
what you said about the love and the concept of love in Middle Ages, it's also quite interesting. Yeah,
Yeah,
how
it
they
is.
actually, what was their perception of love? But I would expect that it had lot to do with the antique concept and the way how they were dividing it, and also with, of course, with Christian influences, the aspects of Christian love. So I reckon it was very present in different this like nuances within those two concepts. Yeah, very interesting. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. I can recommend you, maybe if you didn't try it yet, there is, I tried for other work I was doing related to a 9th century novelist from Spain, Rosalía de Castro. And I was trying to process her novels in terms of emotions. I was experimenting with some software and programs, and then with the software R, which is very used for statistics. There is also this wait a second, because I will give you the reference from here. From our project, and then I think it's easier to show you. Here in methodology, I made all these experiments using Outlook here again. Well, I don't know if you can see it. I think you see it, right? And
yeah, I can.
So emotions, and here you can. I will send it now in the chat. I was using this tool. It's a package of R it's called Suset, and then it allows you to work with sentiment analysis in a very computer-based way, and it's automatic. The thing is that with novels and emotions, we have this problem of what we do, right, with other things like irony, or when a character is saying something that is ambiguous. How do you connect? It's not that clear for the machine to know if something is positive or negative,
You
for example.
you have to have those subcategories that helps, like so-called, how they call it in linguistic, children, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that like you have that tree. How you have to actually rely a lot to what they're doing in linguistic research. Actually, how they're operating with language. It's not enough. This like basic literature research that we are doing. You have to include a bit of that linguistic side in the
Definitely.
whole thing.
Yeah, it's a very complex.
It's almost like combinatorics and mathematics. Actually, I was asking, because my husband is is a bit of like a bit of a family business. Like he because he was actually working at the University of UNSU with he's in computational linguistics. That's why I asked him if he could actually recommend what to do with this and that actually program that they were working with, and later on he left the university and he has his own software company. So he developed for actually analyzing customer feedbacks. And because in
That's very
customer
good.
feedback you have to deal often with this. I don't like this. he said to me that, you know, like, for example, he was working with companies, like he was working for social care and healthcare. And so you can imagine that in those feedbacks, you have quite nuances, these answers, like what people didn't like, and the doctor addressed me in a wrong way.
But
you have to, this is a very sophisticated way how you can recognize, and it was built over years and years. So it's actually very useful then, is what you are saying, how to recognize certain, you have to develop the system of subcategories, and then when you are filling those subcategories, then you can somehow like combine them, and then you get another categories. So you know, you first, there is this division, like basic, like negative, positive, in the middle, not negative, not positive, and then you're just developing them further, like tree. That's why it's called tree. Like you have those trenches, and then you have all the subcategories. It's actually very complex, but I think it would be perhaps good way to maybe direct this whole digital thing in literature, like that, because like you said, there is always problem with irony, with some kind of subtle messages, some kind of undertone that
exactly.
But it's good if you can, if you can, for example, it's good reference if you can recognize like pieces, paragraphs, like pieces of text, and then you sometimes just have to go and check yourself. You cannot always, you cannot take this thing for granted. Of course, you can go back and check that passage and then see what is it actually in that context. So how does it work, so that this one you can recognize the one that you are now showing, that you can recognize certain place in the text, like sentence, and then you can just click like you are using this normal command search, and then you can click to that emotion, for example, and then immediately shows you the place in the text. So you can check like context, for example.
Yeah,
if it recognizes
context. This one is a bit complex, and but it's very useful because it also show you the way you can work with the shape of a story. That's beautiful. It's something that I enjoyed in terms of emotions, and then you can create these amazing graphics. I think everything is here more or less. I don't know if you can read in Spanish, but maybe you can ask me if you need something. You have the program gives some positive, negative situation, and then you can see here, for example, fear. It thinks the program thinks this part of the novel is related to fear, and you can see why, because there are some words that are related to that emotion, and you can see here which words are related to which emotions in the program. Angry is fuerza, so strength, sadness, and then and the thing is that you can also work with this idea of creating the shapes of a story. It depends how many positive and negative elements are around during the novel, for example, and then it draws the shape of the novel. And it's something that I work with that in the past, and I can tell you that it was very accurate. Like the beginning of the novel, this one, for example, it goes from a very good situation to a very bad, and it goes like this, and it's exactly what the program or the software recognize as well.
They can be very useful, but of course you have to always follow the process and check this thing, but it can make your life easier. And I like how, for example, you can I was also analyzing some Gothic novels, and then how you can, for example, define exact adjectives that I use to describe, for example, a certain feeling, for example, fear or anxiety, or for example, how how is it created? Like what kind of adjectives are used and this kind of thing. So you can immediately get them grouped at the one place, like, and show like, okay, so this situation, this feeling was created by using this and that adjectives. So yeah, it's very interesting.
Well, thank you so much, Gordana. It was a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah,
thank you both.
Can you just put back? I can take a screenshot of that thing. How that system of yours is called?
Sorry.
Can you just put back that page, that what you were showing to me, how that system is called in your project?
Yeah. Well, I wrote it on the chat. I gave you the link, and the
okay, great.
Is called R. It's very used in the statistic field, so mathematics, everything. But now with this, thanks to this researcher, Matthew Jokers, look, I am writing it in the chat.
Okay.
He researches how to use R, this program, this software, also in the humanities, specifically in literature. So he has a lot of papers and everything. And he's the creator, the developer of this package. It's called Suzette, that allows you to work with emotions in a automatically way. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, it's 4 o'clock.
Thank you, Kathy. Yeah. We need to go. We have to go.
Finish.
Yes.
Thank you once again, Laura. Good to know you, so that we can continue, because it seems that we are all interested in emotions. So
yes,
perhaps something can evolve from this.
Nice, that would be nice.
And that would be great. Yes. Thank you both, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Katya. You
Yes,
too.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.